So in April, when the Supreme Court upheld what they are dishonestly calling the partial birth abortion ban, George Bush came out, he was giddy, and he said, "The Supreme Court's decision is an affirmation of the progress we have made over the past 6 years in protecting human dignity." But rewind till last September, when Bush was pressing for the passage of the Military Commissions Act and lashing out against the Geneva Convention's ban on torture, he said, "What does that mean, outrages against human dignity?" And if you think about both of these quotes, where enforced motherhood is an advance for human dignity, but torture, after the photos of Abu Ghraib were shown to the whole world, it's incomprehensible to Bush how this has anything to do with human dignity. You get a sense of what kind of future, what kind of a regime is in store, is being hammered down on the people of the world and on the people of this country, both the Orwellian misuse of language and the fascist fundamentalist program. So my first point that I want to make, 2 points today, but the first one is, if George Bush and his regime is not driven out of office in disgrace, if they're not impeached, if their program is not repudiated before their term is up, then everything that he has ushered in becomes codified, it's legitimated, and it stays with us no matter who becomes the next president. I know many people, we've been having these meetings across the country, town meetings, and many people are coming out because they thought when the Democrats took Congress in '06 that they would stop this president, that they would change things. But they haven't. They could have defunded the war, but instead they gave Bush $100 billion, more than he even asked for, and they removed a request that they be consulted before a new war against Iran be launched. But this is keeping in a long record, and I think this is important because it gets to how are we going to act, and what do we have to break loose of? And I think one of the things we have to break loose of is the idea that somehow that there's going to be a savior from the Democratic Party, and I'm going to talk about how this refusal of the Democrats to stop this war is keeping with a long record. The Democrats could have filibustered Alito or Roberts, but instead they downplayed this danger. And now we've seen the most dramatic ruling against women's right to reproductive freedom, to abortion, with the ban they just upheld. We've seen the reversal of Brown versus Board of Education at a time when the schools are more segregated than they've been since 1968, and the ones that are the ones that are mainly people of color are practically prisons. And much, much worse to come from this court. The Democrats could have impeached George Bush for lying about illegal wiretapping. But instead, when this came out, what did they do? They changed the laws to make the wiretapping legal. The Democrats could have held Bush and Rumsfeld accountable for crimes against humanity when the conscience of the world was shocked by the photos of Abu Ghraib. But instead, they passed the Military Commissions Act, making torture legal, ripping up habeas corpus. And then there is Iran. Probably the biggest emergency facing us, and probably the least understood. In recent weeks, Dick Cheney stood on an aircraft carrier off the coast of Iran and threatened that the US would, quote, prevent Iran from gathering nuclear weapons and dominating this region. 3 strike groups with 2 aircraft carriers and 70 attack planes then sailed through the Straits of Hormuz. And a few days ago, a 3rd aircraft carrier joined them in the Gulf. Joe Lieberman has come out and argued aggressively for military action, and it's reported that in the debate between diplomacy and war, that Cheney's position for war is ascending, and there's word that there could be a showdown over Iran by fall. All this flows from the core objectives of the Bush regime, to radically reshape the Middle East as part of creating an unchallenged and unchallengeable global empire. Their difficulties in Iraq and the region have only heightened the prospect of a war with Iran. And attacking Iran, let's be clear, would be catastrophic. It would pour gasoline on a very negative global dynamic in which US aggression, the greatest danger to the people of the world, is fueling reactionary Islamic fundamentalism, which in turn is used by the Bush regime to justify further aggression. The flames of this dynamic are consuming the oxygen that secular and progressive forces need to get a following, and if it continues, no one and nothing on this planet will be unaffected. And in the face of this, there is not a single viable Democratic candidate, Hillary, Barack, or Edwards, who is trying to put a halt to this. In fact, all of them are on record saying that they would take no option, including nuclear options, off the table in dealing with Iran. Right. Hillary says, in dealing with this threat, no option can be taken off the table. Obama, we should take no option, including military action, off the table. Edwards, we need to keep all options on the table. Bush is not over. He is still commander-in-chief, he is still a wartime president, and he still has plans for expanding this war. There are too many people still hoping that they can wait it out till '08, that somehow this nightmare will run its course, but what we got in '06 is what we'll get in '08, if we don't do something radically different. Yep. So again, I say, if George Bush and his regime is not driven from office, if his program is not repudiated before the end of his term, then everything he has done, from legalizing torture to ripping up the rule of law, to the spying and the lying, the assaults on women, on gays, on science and critical thought, the betrayal of black people in Hurricane Katrina, all of this will remain no matter who becomes the next president. So it's on us to stop it. And that's the second thing I want to talk about. I know a lot of people across the country right now are frustrated, and especially with this latest betrayal and capitulation of the Democrats around the war funding, people are starting to give up hope. And they're feeling that there's nothing they can do to stop this and affect things. So I want to say we cannot give up hope. And I don't say this just because we have to keep on fighting the good fight, so we go down in history as people who tried. But I'm saying this because it is still possible to stop this fascist remaking of this society and this empire in the world. It is still possible. But again, we have to get clear on how we have to act. And I think right now the most basic lessons of the huge social changes of this century are being erased. The 8-hour day, civil rights, the right to abortion, these were not handed over by Congress. They were not the result of lobbying, and they weren't won by Reverend Yearwood's new coined term, the punch card activism. These gains were won because millions were in motion, causing such upheaval so great that everyone had to take a side, that no one could ignore it, and that the halls of power had to respond to the terms being set from below. That is what caused people in Nixon's own cabinet to refuse to lie for him during Watergate. That's what caused civil rights legislation that had been blocked and stalled for years to get pushed through. And it was that, including, yes, the outright and utter rebellion and revolt among soldiers during the Vietnam War that led to an end to that war. People didn't ask permission from Congress. They didn't restrict themselves to what seemed realistic given the debate in the halls of power. They told the truth and they put everything on the line to do what was right. And today the stakes are even higher. I'm not going to stand here today and say that it will be easy to stop this regime. It will take sacrifice, and it will not all be safe and civil. And it will take offending some people. Because some people will get offended if we talk about abortion. Some people will get offended if we refuse to support troops who are carrying out war crimes. Some people will get offended if we reject the notion that American lives are more valuable than Iraqi lives, or if we insist that evolution is a fact, and that Bush is not an idiot, he's a war criminal, and that the Democrats are not simply spineless, they are complicit in crimes against humanity. Or if we tell people, including other people who say, I agree with you, I'm against Bush too, if we tell them the truth, that if you know, or if you have the basis to know, the tremendous crimes being carried out by your government right now in your name, and you do not act to stop this, and you do not rearrange your priorities, if you do not think about it every morning when you wake up and think about, what am I going to do, and who am I going to reach out to and move to be part of a movement to stop this regime, if you do not do that, then you are complicit. We should be realistic, but we should not be supporting what is wrong. And the basic thing we have to understand, we're a minority in society. We are coming out at these town hall meetings. There's a lot of us, but we actually have to go out and activate the majority in society. who is with us in their sympathies. But I'll tell you this, if you want to change the way people are acting, you have to change the way they're thinking. And we have to be fearless in going out and challenging people on these things.